First speaker, get it out of the way. She's very excited. Welcome to the stage, Freia Siegel.
Hi, my name is Freia Siegel, and I've spent the last 6 years of my career in renewable energy, and I've repeatedly witnessed how we're trying to jam a solar panel into a coal-sized socket, and the puzzle pieces don't fit together. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But first, a little history lesson. Edison electrified New York in 1882, and utility-scale power was born from coal. A couple years later, in 1895, megawatt-scale power came online at Niagara Falls. Hydropower, renewable. And then, in the decades that followed, coal and hydro began to define the backbone of American electricity generation. We built out huge infrastructure projects such as the Hoover Dam to make our hydropower capacity go up, and we also built large coal power plants, culminating in Plant Share, which is the largest coal power plant today. In the 70s, we saw huge nuclear come online. Palo Verde, pictured here, powers 4 million homes in the Southwest every single day, and there's been a recent interest in building more nuclear capacity. In the 1980s, natural gas came online at a utility scale, and it's the largest generation source of electricity today. A common trend was to retrofit coal-fired power plants to be natural gas-fired, including our very own Cherokee Generating Station a couple miles up the road. And then, in the last 2 decades, we've had renewables come online at a utility scale, with hundreds of gigawatts deployed across the United States today. And contrary to popular belief, utility-scale solar is the lion's share, not on top of your roof. So to recap the little history lesson, we started off with coal and hydro. Then we added nuclear and natural gas. And only in the last 2 decades have we added intermittent renewables at a utility scale. Now that I've given you a short history lesson for some context, I want to dive into a couple definitions. Wind, solar, and hydro aren't the only renewable electricity sources, but they are the only ones deployed at a meaningful utility scale. But I want to zero in on one key difference between the renewables that you see behind me today. And that is that some of them are intermittent, like wind and solar. They fluctuate throughout the day. And others are baseload, like hydro, meaning that they have a constant power output. Our power grid today is baseload. In addition to being baseload, it is also dispatchable, meaning that you can turn the power grid on and off, and you can toggle the output of individual power plants. No matter how nicely you ask the sun, it's not going to shine at night, meaning that intermittent renewables are never dispatchable. And so we've disrupted this grid that's built on baseload, primarily fossil fuels, with these newcomers that don't follow any of the same rules, and the worst of which is solar. The sun doesn't shine at night, so what does that mean for demand? Well, in the case of solar, that leads to something known as the duck curve, which is kind of like throwing happy hour at 11 a.m. Right idea? Wrong time. And so the duck curve, the belly of the duck, gets deeper every single year, the more solar that we add on the grid. So simply slapping intermittent renewables on the grid isn't the solution. So to recap the definitions we've learned, our current grid is baseload, and it is dispatchable and primarily fossil fuels. The newcomers are intermittent renewables primarily. It's like adding Slack to a fax-only workspace. It's going to lead to some communication issues. So let's review the solutions in the form of a pop quiz. Because I like you all, I'll give you the answer in a couple of slides. The first answer that you might think is intuitive is let's prioritize baseload sources since the grid is baseload. Well, most baseload sources are fossil fuels, and in the context of renewables, they're all regionally limited and or prohibitively expensive. So if you have baseload renewables, great, use them. If you don't, you might have to look towards other solutions. If you're dealing with wind and solar, you might think, just add a battery, that'll solve your problem. And this is a great solution in some cases, but batteries always add cost and complexity. So you have to evaluate this on a techno-economic basis for every single site. The third option is if you can't regulate the supply, regulate the demand. You might have interacted with this already in the form of off-peak EV charging or smart thermostats in your home. And this is a great supplement in order to be able to make the belly of that duck a little bit leaner. And the last is to create virtual power plants. Combine all of these generation and storage sources into one to be able to better regulate their output as a whole. Now, that answer I promised you wasn't actually presented on the first slide. The answer is we're going to need all of the above in order to be successful. And I have great news for you. I'm standing in a room full of people today that are smart and motivated and probably working on sub-aspects of this solution already. The slide I showed you at the beginning showed two puzzle pieces that didn't fit together. And I meant it. Simply throwing renewables onto our current grid won't work. We have to rethink the grid as a whole and paint a new picture, piecing it together one piece at a time for a renewable future that includes intermittent renewables as well. Thank you.
Is that the way to kick it off? Nicely done. Now you can drink some more. That's fantastic. You did a great job. Great job. Your beer, yes, it's coming. So if we had switch bingo, duck curve, that was a good one. Yay, duck curve, we got that one. Where did you get the DSM load shape slides with the 6 different load shapes? The internet. I actually hand drew those in 1984, so they're still in use. Well, yeah, because we didn't have computers. I don't know how we found each other. How did we find each other? So, all right, enough of that.